Nice Shorts theme song.
Nice shorts. Yeah.
Melissa, thanks so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a substantial film you made here. It is not a short film.
That is true. It was originally supposed to be 5 minutes, and then
Oh,
I boarded it and I was like, okay, it's more like 10. And then we made it, and I was like, all right, it's almost 13.
yeah, definitely share with us more about the choice. Like, how come the story you feel like it needs more information for that? And the film this year you're going to screen at PFCAT is The Farmer's Daughter.
Yeah, so The Farmer's Daughter is really my love letter to regenerative farming, which is something that I learned a lot more about as of 2020. I started connecting with different people and farmers who were really starting to look at soil health as a huge reason why human health has declined so much over the years. And so it was just a subject I started deep diving into, found some great organizations, one specifically called Farmers Footprint, who actually did help me with some research and connected me to a farmer so that I could make sure all the facts were straight in the film. Because it's a silent film, it was really hard to time it. So the script was around 6 pages and almost all description. And so when that started actually translating into visuals, and then you started giving that the time it needed, that turned into almost 10 minutes. And then when I was actually directing the animators, sometimes the shot just needed a little more breathing room than we had given it in the animatic. And so it was a huge learning experience, but also, I wanted to challenge myself to make a silent film because they say, a great storyteller should be able to make a film silently and not have any dialogue explaining what is
Oh,
happening. So
yeah.
that was my personal challenge is can I make this with absolutely no talking? And it started as a feature film idea
Mm.
um, 4 or 5 or 6 years ago when I just started the studio. And I thought, I don't think I can make that anytime soon if it's a feature film. So it became a short film so that it could actually happen in the studio as we have it now and in a way that could help the studio grow and be ready to make a feature film.
My first impression watching it was very connected to the earth. I figured grew up on a farm, did not. So, what was it like talking to the farmer and learning about what was that experience and what did you take away from it?
Yeah, so the farmer's name is Rick Clark. He has a podcast called Farm Green. Rick and I just took a few phone calls and he was like, go ahead and record them. So I just turned on my garage band while I was talking with him and put my phone next to my computer and asked him a million questions about it. Really started rooted in his experience. So he has 7,000 acres of regenerative farmland in Indiana. So, and 7,000 acres is a lot. That's a lot of acres.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Most people
yeah.
can barely do 10 or 100 acres regenerative. So, he's one of the originals of, this new wave of regenerative farming. Obviously, regenerative practices are ancient, they are indigenous, but this way that the really, really cool thing, I've interviewed a few regenerative farmers since the film. The amazing thing is these people around the country were not connected and not talking to each other at all. And they were discovering the same exact practices because what they were doing was watching the land and
Mm.
allowing the land to tell them what it needed. And so all of them came to the same practices. And then one day we're like, oh, you're doing that. You're doing that. You're doing that. Cool. Let's all talk about it. Let's keep sharing it and tell other people and help them do it. So these men they're incredible. Will Harris, Rick Clark, Gabe Brown, these are like the fathers of modern regenerative agriculture. But so Rick's journey was really, he inherited this farm and was using conventional practices. And one day there was a storm and it wiped out like a ton, like eroded a whole field, like all of their
Oh,
freshly planted crop.
Mm.
And
yeah.
so, I mean, that's hard to bounce back from. I think in their case, they weren't even able to like get the insurance to cover. And so he just kind of was like, this is not going to work. I need to find a different way. And so he started finding his way through that. I mean, it's been, I think, 4.5 years since I interviewed him. So I apologize if I'm forgetting details, but the film's basis, I have the eroded field in there. That's kind of the catalyst of why daughter's like, okay, I want to find a new way here because I don't want to lose the farm. And so there's just a few things that he shared that were helpful in how I laid out the story and the plot points. And yet also he was like, and then you wait 20 or 30 years. And
Yeah.
I was like, so
Wow.
maybe that part I can change.
Yeah.
Artistic license for sure. But it's
Yeah.
cool.
I want to dig in more of your personal impact. What is the impact that you get to so conscious and also helping to let more people know we should protect the environment. We should do more for this and through your film.
Yeah, this is a very long-winded question and answer maybe, but I love this question because this is why I started my studio. And I think that something that's hard for me to watch is I think everybody is coming from a really good place in their heart, and we all love the environment. We all want to help protect it and care for it. We all want to be healthy humans on a healthy planet. And so, storytelling's amazing. We can tell the most amazing stories and connect people to these ideas and get them excited about it. And oftentimes, what I'm finding in stop motion is someone makes a film talking about sustainability and they're using all toxic and wasteful materials. And I see it
Oh,
over and over and over again.
oh no.
And it's like, well, I'm over here actually making it in a way that is aligned with the planet and with nature. And so it's really exciting to be in a phase where people are starting to see that. And during the process of making the film, it was very interesting because when I was hiring on some fabricators early on before I had my studio space in downtown Kalispell, I was just working out of my garage at home, and the project was becoming bigger and bigger and bigger since Alexis did the production design. And so I called up some people in Portland and was like, would you work on this? But when I interviewed them, I was like, you're going to basically have to forget everything you know. And you're going to have to experiment with these new ways. And sometimes I haven't tried them yet, and I'm going to ask you to. And so it was very interesting because I had a lot of leads already. I had been researching, I tried some things on my own. And then there was stuff I would send, and I would say, here, try this. And sometimes I would get back, oh, it's not working. And
Hmm.
I was like, okay, well, give me a minute to think about it. And then I'd have another project come in. I would try it and be like, well, it worked for me. So try
Oh,
again. And so it
oh.
was this very interesting thing where like sometimes I had to push a little bit to be like, what, like just see how far you can go with it. See if it will work just because you think it might rip or that it won't work sewing this in a certain way. Like just try. You have to try again, soak it in water. Like there's always another angle you can go at to try. But a lot of what we do is R&D, research and development. So there were definitely hours wasted. I have an apprenticeship program to train locals because stop motion doesn't really exist in Montana. And so, sometimes I'd walk away for a meeting for a couple hours and come back, and it was totally wasted time where they were just waiting to talk to me and be like, this isn't working. And so sometimes that happened and it was frustrating. But if we don't experiment, we're never going to find a better way. I have my
Yeah, I saw him. We're gonna say hi.
father puppet here. So his eyelids are natural modeling clay. Modeling clay, plasticine, all of that, that is petroleum based. So it's a plastic product.
Yes.
Usually proprietary, you won't know exactly what's in it, but chemical based. And so the natural clay is made with pigments from natural earth paint. It's made with cacao butter, beeswax, and I think some coconut oil. There might be one or two things I'm missing, but we just melt it down and then pour it into these little teeny cubes. And then we can melt those down in little wax seal spoons and then pour them into the molds for the eyelids. And you also can shape it yourself, but it starts to crack. So animators will just keep the eyelids under the heat lamp in between shots just to keep going on father. So his costume is organic cotton. And also, I think these jeans were my dad's jeans. Like, I couldn't find like denim online that actually looked like denim. It was very strange. His face is and head are biodegradable 3D printing filament. So I had a model maker named Matt Cross who came onto the project, a few fabricators in, and I found a
Oh,
product called Nanolean, and you can see the breakdown of their SDS sheets, their technical sheets, and it biodegrades with no microplastics re-entering the soil. And so that's the one
wow.
we chose to use, and we had to get a new 3D printer that used a filament because they only sell it as a filament. And so Matt spearheaded making all of our 3D printed puppet heads because they were originally baking soda clay. And I dropped one and it cracked in half like right after I made it. And I was like, this is not going to hold up in animation. That was an
Oh.
early test that did not work. So his body is needle felted regenerative wool over a regular wire armature, but I used the body blocks would normally be made out of propoxy, which is a two-part epoxy product that you're not supposed to touch with your hands or breathe in, and everybody does. And
Uh,
so we paper clay. And so I just let that dry naturally, and I even put it out in the sunshine to cure during the summer. If it's winter, you can't really do that, but it'll dry in a few days, and it kind of dries from the outside in, so you have to give it time or else it'll still be soft inside. But that held up pretty well. The only thing that did not hold up great was the tie downs in the feet. And so I ended up having an armaturist make a little ball and socket feet about halfway through production because the animators were being so patient. And every single shot, their tie downs were coming loose. And so having those made really, really made a difference for the rest of production. And then he's got regenerative wool locks for his hair.
mm,
And his hands are also needle felted with wool that is pigmented and then covered in natural earth paint acrylic medium. So they make a plant-based acrylic that has worked kind of as our latex replacement. I brought a couple things. This is a
Experiments
piece
and
of mushroom foam. It's literally mycelium. It's literally just like a form of a mushroom.
okay.
And this is a final molded brick. We can put T-pins and toothpicks and all sorts of stuff, but you can just break it and all of the little things will crumble back out. Here you can see a corner is coming off. So it's just these little flakes.
Okay.
oh,
Yeah, so the mushroom foam was great. It was our styrofoam replacement.
you say it's both hard but light, right? It felt
Oh
very,
yeah.
yeah.
It's really light,
Okay.
really lightweight. The sets are still heavy, and if you have enough of it, it starts to get heavy,
Okay.
but it's not as light as styrofoam, and
Okay.
it's not as cheap as styrofoam.
Okay.
And it takes a lot longer to make. But I think something about my studio is also just that why are we rushing? Why does everything have to happen so quickly? We're artisans, we're creating with our hands. Like
Yeah.
it's okay if it takes an extra week or two. And so our profit is not our main value.
Mhm.
And I mean, stop motion is not where millionaires are made anyway.
What do you mean? It's a cash cow.
But yeah, so basically, it's just really honoring nature, honoring that things are cyclical, that you try and fail and then try again. And sometimes it's going to work and sometimes it's not. And sometimes you need 3 extra weeks to finish. And so you give it to yourself. So the set, I built it out of and grew it out of mushroom foam. And so we were able to just kind of tack on the felt to the front of the set. And
Mm.
then needle felting is huge at our studio. We can get so much done and secured with no glue because of needle felting and felt. And our felt is 100% wool. We do not do acrylic craft felt. Our studio is almost entirely plastic free and petroleum free are grasses.
Okay.
So
Oh,
our grass was made out of just a sheepskin
Mhm.
from a regenerative supplier that used to be here in Montana, and her family moved to Texas, but they were called Roving Ram Ranch. And so I had an inkling this would work, but I wasn't sure. But I went to see her ranch, and we came inside, and there were these beautiful sheepskin rugs, and I was like, I think that might work for our grass. Could I take one? And she was like, yeah. So I ended up buying a few from her. And this was a hunch. I just get hunches and I think, okay, this looks right. So can I make it work? And I spoke with this woman who dyed some fabrics for us to make grass like look like grasses, like organic cotton sherpa and terry cloth. And she was like, you're not going to be able to dye sheepskin because it will ruin, it will get really tough and hard. I was like, okay, if I can't dye it, what can I do? So I ended up becoming a hairstylist and I put on a compostable glove and I took the natural earth paints, children's paints, which has like a little cornstarch. You just mix it with water. And then I sat and I brushed in the green color to this.
Uh-huh.
and it worked perfectly. It took perfectly. So this became our grasses. We made a ton of this and we still reuse this for other projects. Now these are just assets we have in all different shapes and sizes. You can see we used our animal-based wood glue on it, and then
Yeah.
you can just get it to come right up with some hot water. Sometimes you can just kind of pry it off if we don't use too much of it. But my tip is really to just really question why you're using a material and does
Uh-huh.
it need to be that? Because most people would be using synthetic fur and styrofoam. And yeah, those are cheap. You can find them really easily wherever you are. But those are just going in the landfill. And you can only reuse the styrofoam so much. Sure, you can reuse the fur a little more, but I mean, we are still using these things that we've created that are biodegradable, that go back to the earth, and they're still assets for our studio. So that's my main tip. And another one is we don't use any hot glue. And so
Okay.
instead we use weights. So, do you need the hot glue or can you get away with not using it? Like how many of us actually are, a bull in a china shop running through the set, knocking everything over? Most of us are being pretty careful.
You say using weights?
We have a local steel company, Pacific Steel, and they just sell these long pieces of metal, and we just had them cut them down into these little square plates. And so we actually use those in fabrication to like weigh things down to dry with our natural glue. And then we also use them. I had someone solder together three with a handle, and we use those at the base of our tables. We just made kind of little platforms at the bottom of all of our animation tables, and the weights just sit on there. So you can go kick it and it's not going anywhere.
I love like you know the elements in everything in the project. And building a new habit is such challenging. But what you shared so far just made me realize that, wow, we really need to hear more, like also in the school or like from how other people are sharing. I hope this get more exposed because we learn so much is from those easiest material we get so used to. I wonder what's your further on planning for more people
How are
to
you going to
join
conquer the
into
world? Yeah.
yeah, to join into the system, like especially in the educational.
Yeah, so that is a huge part of my vision ultimately is when I feel that the practices are ready enough. I want to be consulting with other studios. I want to have summer camps and workshops. I want to invite people in to really understand what we're doing and be able to take that to their own, studios and artistic practices. And so that is the long-term goal. I think everybody that's drawn to stop motion, they naturally have that brain where they're
Mm.
creative. They want to figure things out. And so I had a fabricator very early on who worked on the project with all of our natural glues and then went on to work on a commercial and was like, I only want to use your products now, and was gravitating toward them instead of the, Zap and all of those really nasty glues emitting all these toxins into the air. So, yes, ultimately, I would love to spread these practices. And our next step is to create a feature film, which is
Mhm.
already in pre-production. And I'm in the middle of funding through a fiscal sponsorship, which means a nonprofit sponsors the film and people can donate and get a tax write-off. And so I felt very strongly about doing this outside of Hollywood and, creating it, bringing the community in from the beginning and letting them know that we are creating this and they can be a part of it. We have some tutorials on our website blog, and I've shared about the mushroom foam, about our natural clays, preserving leaves, all the techniques that we use, I've shared openly and freely because I want people, even if they're just crafting at home alone, like all of this stuff, bleeds into fine art, it bleeds into the craft world. And I'm so excited for people to see the film. And I'm very curious if they can tell that it's made with all natural materials or if it looks like other stop motions. Hmm.
Huh? Oh.